We're here for it, yeah. We're here for it, yeah. We're here for it, yeah. We're here for it, yeah.
Hey guys, it's Paula. Welcome back to the SheHH podcast, where we interview women in Christian music all over the world. Today we're speaking to Dominican-American singer, songwriter, and producer Ada Betsabe. We go through her music journey so far, overcoming a lot of hardships along the way, and how being fluent in Spanish as well as English has opened up a whole new market for her. Make sure to join in the conversation online using hashtag SheHH podcast and share this episode with a friend. So thank you so much, Ada, for joining us on the SheHH podcast. I really appreciate you just giving us some of your time and telling us about your story. Could you please introduce yourself to those listening right now?
Sure. Thank you so much, Paula, for the invitation. I'm really honored to be here. I am Ada Betsabe, but you can call me Ada. That's my tag. So you'll hear that on my songs.
Yeah.
And actually just came up with that because I found myself explaining or trying to show people how to pronounce Ada Betsabe so much that I was like, just call me Ada. So yeah, that's me. And I am currently living in Redding, California, originally from Boston with Dominican blood. So a little bit of a mixture here. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, that's me.
Yeah, I mean, you just touched on it, but you're originally an immigrant from the Dominican Republic, grew up in a city just outside of Boston, New York. You have all these different influences. How did they kind of shape your music and the genre of music that you produce?
I was shaped a lot by what I couldn't listen to growing up because my parents were pastors. And so it was like, it was like off limits. Anything that was
Yeah,
secular was very traditional. Not like today where like you go to youth service and they're playing like a Bruno Mars song, and
yeah.
the whole sermon series is based around catching a grenade. Jesus caught a grenade for you. Like it's that style. But no, back in the day, it was just so closed minded, and so yeah, I kind of was always that rebel kind of kid that wanted to do whatever I wasn't supposed to do. So I remember going to like Walmart, Target, and just like getting CDs, like, oh, Fabulous, Alicia
Mhm.
Keys, like B2K, the R&B kind of upcoming back when Diddy
Yeah.
making the band, like I was all in that, the early American Idol and like Kelly Clarkson, like just anything that was popular and that was like entertainment and out there, I was always drawn to it. But then I also had like the Latin gospel, and
Mhm.
then I had the Latin urban secular, like the bachata and the salsa and the Mark Anthony and the Romeo Santos and all of these, like, so it was just a lot at once. And I think I just found a niche in, I'd say, like the soulful hip hop. That was really what
Mhm.
captivated me because it was like I could be raw and I could be emotional,
Mhm.
and real and kind of worshipful, which was like, the church influence, but then I could do it in an urban way, which was, the
Yeah.
secular influence. So that was kind of where I found my groove with like J. Cole, like, obviously that was
Mm.
later on, but even before, like with just the early soulful people telling stories. Like I was big on the Notorious B.I.G., like the stories and the struggle and
Yeah.
I don't have money, but I had to go do this to get it. And like I kind of I started understanding and connecting with the stories behind the songs. Like, church people would point and say, oh, this person's doing this on the street. But then you'd hear the song and it's like, well, they don't have anything. This is the only thing they think they can do, and
Yeah.
kind of kind of sympathizing with people's stories. That's where my love for music began.
Yeah, the journey that got them to the end point that you're now seeing them at is told in the music. Yeah, love that.
Yeah.
And did you always like intend to be a singer or a rapper, or was it like, oh, do you know what? I'm loving this. I'm gonna have a piece of it. I've got something to bring. What was the kind of journey there?
I didn't think I would do it like professionally, which I've, thank God, I've had the opportunity to be full-time music for a few years. Or I should say I live off of my art, so it's
Mm,
full-time music, but I'm doing other things music related, maybe not specifically for my artistry. Maybe sometimes I consult with other artists. I help write for other
Mhm.
artists. I'm producing all these things. So regardless, it's dope to just live off of what you're passionate about.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm grateful for that, and just want to give Jesus all the glory for that. But um, yeah, I don't think I saw myself doing it professionally until I saw the impact that I could make in people's lives with it.
Mm.
It was really just fun at first. And it was also a way for me to express my emotions and my feelings, and to just, it was like an unfiltered place where I could be safe to say how I felt. And then when I got to college freshman year, just like hanging out with friends and in parties, like we would just play beats and everyone would freestyle, and I'd come with bars that I had written, and
Mhm.
people were just vibing, and I would be like, everybody put your hands up, and I would hype them up, and it would be like in a living room. And then I remember one of my roommates, she just started like becoming an advocate every time we were out. She's like, yo, our girl Ada though, she got bars, like she got to spit. And I'm like, yo, why are you putting me on the spot? And then it just turned into this like thing. And so eventually I was like, you know what? I'm gonna start doing that. Like, I'm gonna put stuff out, and I started covering. Like, I covered a lot of songs that were out, and then eventually, because I didn't believe. I think a lot of people don't believe they can do it on their own, so they start doing something that's like subpar.
Mm.
And it almost, in a way, it's almost like the fear of taking that risk too, because when you're going in on your own, you're gonna invest, you're gonna spend money on beats, you're gonna go to studio, spend money on that, and there's a bigger investment. And so I think at first I kind of got like my feet wet a little bit, and then I was like, you know what, I really feel like I'm supposed to do this like for real. So
Yeah.
I just put out an album, and I walked through the front door. I just kind of walked in with like graphics and professional photographs and all this stuff, and people were like, who the heck is this girl? Where'd she come from? But yeah, that was the beginning. 2016, that was my album Freedom.
Oh, amazing. Wow. Like you were going in from then. I love that. Um we're about to get a little bit deep. I like for the listeners back at home, we've had a little bit of a back and forth about what we're going to discuss in this interview, and I just want to say like your story is really a lot, number one, and number two, inspiring. It just reminds me of how intense and overwhelming and amazing God's love is. I don't want to give you words that you should say or try and like put a spin on it myself. So I just want to kind of ask you. You touched on the fact that you're a pastor's daughter. I'm pastor's daughter as well, so I understand that pressure and just the annoyingness that comes with that, and how much you just want to break free and rebel because you're like, no. So I totally get that myself. But you talk about you've spoken about publicly, like just seeing a lot of hypocrisy in church, and how that actually led you to kind of turn your back on God for a bit and seek guidance and support elsewhere. And you actually ended up experimenting with a lot of different things. So I just kind of want to have you tell a bit more of that story, and what in church kind of made that situation happen.
Sure. Oh, it's so much. Well,
Yeah.
I want to start off by saying this. So, one of the biggest things that I'm an advocate for is for the church. You can't love Jesus and hate his bride. And so
Mm-hmm.
I'm an advocate for the church. I think we can get lost in the sauce of church hurt and
Mm-hmm.
make it about that. And so I just want to say that up front. Like, I found a lot of pain in the church, but I've found healing in the church. And so
Mm-hmm.
the same body that has hurt or could hurt you is also the body that will heal you. Which points to continuing to stay connected, and to be in community. There's strength in numbers, and there's
Yeah.
power in covering. And so I have that, because especially in the urban world with music, rap, it's such a protesting type of music. It started as protesting, in
Yeah.
back in the Bronx, and the when hip hop began, it was like about social justice, and I think that's the DNA of rap even today, urban Christian. And then it's like, well, we're gonna use this to like, protest against the fact that like we only get invited to youth services and we only get paid this much, but the invited evangelist will go on Sunday and he'll get paid that much. And it's like we're
Mhm.
sometimes we're counterproductive when we're trying to do something and we actually end up doing wrong. You're trying to do help and we end up hurting. And so I feel like that the introduction to my ministry was a lot of that. I have like a lot of my music is in Spanish, and so I'm bilingual, and so I incorporate both languages, but it opened a lot more doors for me in Latin America. However, in Latin America, the church tends to be a little more traditional and conservative, especially
Mm-hmm.
with like even like the length of your hair as a woman, tattoos, piercings are things that are not necessarily accepted yet. And so, coming through the door, I'm already, making a genre that's different and not normal to their community. And then I'm coming
Mm-hmm.
also with my look is also not easy to kind of swallow for them. And so I was faced with a lot of that, and it triggered some of my wounds, just childhood wounds. I mean, I saw a lot of things that really challenged me to really seek God for myself. And so in that journey, I explored with so many religions, like from, I started out by like, oh, I just don't believe in anything. And then it was like, Buddhism and then like the Zen, and then, oh, but like, let me study a bunch of other things. And then it was like, well, I just believe in myself, because this is the thing, right? We were created to worship. Excuse me.
Yeah.
We were created to worship. And so we will worship something. It doesn't matter who you are and where you are. There is something that will have your devotion, because we were made that way. And so there was a point where I just fell into this place where it was like, I don't believe in anything. I believe in me. And that kind of led me to do things that I felt were filling my ego or making me feel better. So one of them was women. I felt like, I don't know, for women it was like, oh, well, I can make this person feel good, or I can, please this person. And it was kind of like an ego thing. It wasn't ever even, oh, I love you, that I want you to be better. It was always like,
Yeah.
I love me, and this makes me feel like I'm valued or I'm valuable, and it was like that constant quest for approval, and even
Mm-hmm.
myself approving myself, and just wanting like a hug and a pat on the back, like sometimes we just want someone to say, I'm proud of you. Like that's all we need. But we go to find that in external places. And so that was
Mm-hmm.
a journey for me. I'd say, so I was abused by a woman when I was 16, and that brought me a lot of confusion. Growing up in church, I knew that like there was just such a taboo word, like the homosexuality was such a taboo word, and it was like, those are the people that have no hope. It was the way that it was portrayed, and even had a family member who was like kind of really pushed away. And so I always was hurting because of that, because I was like, well, but like that's our family, like I was just like, but how can you like embrace this random person who just came to church yesterday and is like on drugs, and you're like bringing them to our house and they're having dinner at our table, but like your own blood is excommunicated for years. Like I just didn't understand that, and so um sometimes it's easier to say things than to do them. Sometimes it's easier
Yeah.
for us um, to share on grace and on the grace of God, when it doesn't mean that we have to give grace to the person that's right next to
Mm-hmm.
us.
Mm-hmm.
And so even ourselves, sometimes we struggle to give grace to ourselves, right? And so anyway, in that journey, I explored with a lot of things, and I, with the confusion of the abuse, it was also like I was also in a lot of pain and didn't really know how to deal with that. And I had no one to share that with. So I just kind of bottled it up, and I sought a community that could accept me, and that LGBTQ at the time was not LGBTQIA plus. It was just LGBTQ. I
Yeah.
don't even think the Q was in there actually. But yeah, so at the time I found a lot of refuge in that community, and I really identify so much with the sentiments of rejection and um, just feeling isolated, that a lot of people in the community feel to this day. I understand what it is to wake up and not feel yourself in your own body, to feel like
Mm-hmm.
you don't want to be a woman, or you're not pretty enough, or you can never be as beautiful as the girl next to you. And I understand those feelings. So I identify so much still to this day with people who are in that space. And I obviously don't believe in, I believe that God has a perfect plan for humanity, and it's obviously not something we can carry out on our own. Just look at us. We can't do it on our own. But he
Yeah.
has this perfect plan of us being reconciled to him through
Mm,
through through Christ, right? And so in Christ, then we can start to take little bites of things that at first we could never conquer. So I've been able to,
yeah.
through the power of that sacrifice and his blood, I've been able to take some things captive in my life that used to take me captive at one point. And
Mm.
and it's really dope. It's a dope journey. I'd love to share more on that in depth at some point. But the other stuff, I guess, that I that you probably read. It's funny, I did an interview. So this interview is like, it's gotten me so many other interviews. I'm like, really? Like, it was this guy from the UK who hit me up one day. We just chatted and he did this write up and he got a lot of things wrong, but he got like some juicy stuff in there, So
Oh,
people
great.
reach out to me and they're like, we heard you were a Satanist. And I'm like, well, I mean, listen, if that's gonna help me get the gospel to you, we'll make sure you get the gospel. But no, so I was gonna sell my soul for money, and I was gonna sign a deal with a major label through a distributor, slash quote unquote artist developer who was actually just a brainwasher,
Oh.
handler, who was, in the business and is still in the business of just taking artists who have talent and just brainwashing them so that they can be in line with the agenda, that a lot of mainstream media has. And so, it is what it is. You know what I mean? It's just the world we're in. Money is power, and so a lot of people with a lot
Mm,
of money have a lot of power, and so that's it doesn't need to be this kind of mystical, like, there's so many conspiracy theories, which is actually a term that was coined to kind of devalue the truth of those very theories that are very much true.
mhm.
But yeah, that's another podcast actually. But 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 yeah, so I had that encounter, and it was life changing. It's actually the reason why I became a Christian. Um,
Ooh,
yeah,
wow.
so that was the reason why. So when I went into that space and I encountered the quote unquote pleasures of living on the other side or working for the other kingdom, because there are two kingdoms, a kingdom of light and a
Mm,
kingdom of darkness. And so they're literally like working simultaneously, in parallel, to one another. And so a lot of people, they're not seeing like what's happening in the spirit. They're thinking it's just like, oh, I get up, I get ready, I go to work, and it's just this kind of robotic, senseless, sheep like deep state.
mm, mhm.
I'm dropping some code words. But but yeah, like once you wake up out of that slumber, you can see the both happening and working at once. And so for me, what snapped me out of that deep state of sleep was just being in the room and having the deal in front of me. And then it sucks that I had to go all the way there, but then again, being the personality God gave me, just being kind of like the go-getter, like a little rebellious kind of, just, I guess, courageous, I don't take no for an answer person
Mm,
that I
mhm.
am. I actually made it to that room, and it was kind of cool, but also really scary. Just to see how evil, is actually a thing, and there are people
Mm,
who have given themselves over to it and are willingly working in collaboration with it. That woke me up real quick, and I realized that the God that I was taught as a child was actually a real. Um,
yeah.
because the way that my mind works is, well, if there's darkness, then there must be light. And so if there's evil, then there must be good. Like, we live in
Mhm.
it's a dual world. There's a duality to the world. And so I had been engaged into some like new agey stuff, and just a bunch of other kind of crystals, and just like trying to find how to channel whatever I needed to channel to to get whatever I needed for myself, and in that moment it was like, it just all made sense. Like, there's only one door.
Mm,
There's like, there are a lot of walls, but there's only one door.
Yeah.
And so
One way. Yeah.
one way. And so I had this encounter, and I said, I was able to say no, and kind of just miraculously was able to leave that space without being harmed too much. I was harmed more mentally and emotionally because of just the mind control aspect of it, but not so much physically. Um, and then I just went back to my hotel, and I was like, God, if you're real, like, I want to know who you are. And I also was like, yo, like, I'm gonna die out here. Like, I'm by myself in LA. I was in LA doing
Mm.
this. And so I had flown across the country, and then I went back home right after that happened. It was like the next day my flight went back home, and I remember arriving at the airport, and my ex-girlfriend at the time, I was in a domestic partnership for a few years. She was like, something's wrong with you. She just knew like something had happened to me. And
Mm.
just
Mhm.
the look in my face, and I was very out of it. And just, I mean, some of the things I saw in the room were very things I wouldn't even put on the record right now, because they're just very, I'll tell you them when I visit you in the UK. um
Yeah.
but yeah, but like, just things that were just scary, and like almost like you wonder if it was real what you saw, like, wait,
Mm.
did I really see that happening? And so I was just hush. And as you can see, I'm a talker. So for me to be coming home after being away for a week to my partner and looking at her and just saying, "How are you?" giving her a hug and then saying nothing. She's like, "How was your
Mm.
trip? And how was it?" And I was out here in the West Coast for music related like events and stuff. So she wanted to know everything about, oh, and who did you meet, and how was the studio, and did you hang out with people, and this and that, and how was your meeting? And she knew I had this meeting. But like, I was just like, oh no, I'm good, I'm good. And kind of beating around and didn't even know how to
Yeah.
share. And so eventually I did share. And then the rest is history, girl. Like, that turned into, you know, us running to the cross, both of us, not
Mm.
just me. But,
Wow.
that's not my story. Her side's not my story to tell. But like, it was dope to see how God could save two people. And, like I
Mm.
said, I grew up thinking or knowing this story of like this preacher who was invited, who came and was like, "Yeah, so I used to be gay and God set me free." And I would always say, "Where's the other guy? Like,
Mm.
was
Yeah.
there not enough grace for the other guy? Is the grace just for you because you are pastor's son? Like, how about the other dude? Like, does God not love him?" And it just
Mm.
completely contradicted everything that I was taught. And so God knew how to get me. You know what I mean? He knew how to love me. He knew
Mm.
that loving me through that, just the way that I got saved, and then also adding that cherry on top, like, and I'm also gonna save her. Like, that was to me the biggest love story. Because
Mhm.
I cared for her. I mean, I genuinely, I do believe people who are in what we call abnormal relationships or non-heterosexual relationships, even people, for example, who are like, the guy's like 12 years older than the girl, or even
Mm.
just relationships that most of society don't applaud. I do believe that you genuinely care for the person, like, you fall
Yeah.
in love with the soul, with the spirit of that person. And so I cared enough to say, "Oh my God," but like, I don't want to like then make this weird, about God. Like, oh, God took my girlfriend. I didn't ever want it to be that. And so God knew exactly what I needed and what needed that situation needed. And he did an amazing, just work in our hearts and in our lives for the first year. And then like we parted ways after a little bit. And God just started working on me and my journey with the music and
Mm.
returned that to me. And I had said I'd never do music again. I was like,
Yeah, I mean that was gonna be my question. I was gonna say like you had that moment afterwards where okay, you've come back to Christ and you've had such a deep internal healing that literally came from the Father Himself. You're now feeling like okay, well, I'm done with music. Like, but you felt like God was actually telling you, no, 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 this is gonna be what you're gonna use. What is that journey like? Because if it was me, I'd be like, this is music's what brought this pain. Went to LA thinking I was gonna do something with music. Music is the issue, and God is saying, no, 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 music's actually the solution. So can you just talk about that a bit?
yeah, So I had said I would never do music again, like ever. Like I was like really settled, and I'm a pretty like determined person. Like when I say like I'm not doing something, I'm just not gonna do it. Or if I am, like I am, you know? And so it was just a really interesting journey to see how God could take my heart and make it more pliable, more moldable,
Mm,
to obey him. That's been, I think, my biggest, as a Christian, I tell you, like my biggest thing to talk about is like, yo, I'm really not the same person. Like, I sometimes I tell myself, I'm like, yo, I'm really saved for real. Like, cause I see things that I do and I'm like, I would have never, ever done that before. Like, she would have got, this guy would have got punched. You know what I mean? Like, I just was not the person to play with. And so God has just been so gracious to just show me, I think it's just compassion. You start to feel
mm,
compassion. And when that comes over you, man, like, it doesn't matter what he asks you to do. It doesn't matter where he asks you to go. You just do it and you go because your heart is not attached to your own desires anymore. You know, you start to become much more attached to his desires um and like what he wants. And then there's such a fulfillment. It's such a deep fulfillment to know that you're in his will and that you're putting a smile on your dad's face. You know, like there's just
mm,
a deep fulfillment that comes from that. And that's what happened to me with music. I wasn't, like I said, I wasn't down to do music, but when I saw what the impact I could make with it, it was like, wow, so wait, this was never really about being famous. This was never really
mm,
about being rich. This was never about being in, five-star luxury hotels and,
mm,
wearing $30,000 watches. Like, that's cool. The Lambo's really cool, but like, it's not about that. And so, man, it just shifted my whole perspective. I went on a mission trip. That's how the journey started. So I went on a mission trip, and it was this like kind of non-conventional festival kind of social justice type of mission thing where it was like
mm,
this pastor in Colombia who like partnered with the police department. It was like, we're going to bring hope because there was a lot of suicide and drug abuse with the kids out there. And he was like, we're going to bring hope to the communities by bringing them a free concert. And the the police was like, what do you mean? And he was like, just let us do it and you'll see. And so he gathered a lot of people who were like rappers and just performers, spoken word. Some people are like storytellers,
mm.
dancers, clowns, and he would just get a crew of people and just go to different communities for a week, 5 days, different place every day. And I got invited to be a part of this through like someone I met on Facebook who was random. And I was just, me, I was just like, I'm down. I'm down. I've never been to Colombia. Why not? And so I went, and yeah, the rest of that was just, it was just a nonstop from there because God showed me like how these kids could be. It was almost like I had their ear because they heard my music, and it
Mm,
was like a siren that would call them. And once they got to us, then it was like, now we have something that we want to say. Now we have you here to listen to what we have to say. And
yeah,
yeah, growing up in my parents' church, we didn't have young people at all, so it was very traditional, and it was like the only young people were like me and my cousins and like a couple. And so I just thought it was like the church's gonna die, and there's not gonna be, this thing's not gonna be carried on to the next generation. And
yeah.
so seeing like how the music could draw young people was just, even little kids and stuff, like it just inspired me to do it. And so then from there I was like, yeah, that was in 2015. Actually, I had been saved for a very short time, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna work on a project and I'm gonna put it out 2016, and then did that.
I mean, you mentioned something that reminded me of something that One Day had said before. One Day is obviously you probably know this, a Christian hip hop artist signed to Reach. She had once talked about the fact that the reason she even went into Christian hip hop was because she was in school, she was in a biology lesson and had rapped something to do with biology for like a project. When she had gone up to the front stage and done this rap, everyone was like, "Oh my gosh, you're so good! This is amazing!" And they hung on to her every word. And she realized that this was an avenue for people to be connected to whatever the message is going to be. Hey, let's make this message about Christ and teach people about God through the music. And that's what I'm hearing was similar in that, missionary trip, where these young kids who were already experiencing such traumatic things were so attracted to the sound, so attracted to the music, and then were able to connect to the message because they were already listening to the music. And so my question for you, Ada, is what do you think about those people that don't really consider hip hop appropriate to share the gospel? Like you said before, like sometimes people panic because it's obviously hip hop was rooted in protest and, strength and social justice. So what's kind of your answer to those people?
I mean, honestly, like my answer is that they should, if they really feel passionate enough to speak against something, they should be passionate enough to save their little coins and come out to one of the missions with us. Like, come out and watch people get radically delivered,
Mm,
watch demons get casted out of people, watch kids get, healed from the pain in their heart of watching their father kill their mother in front of them, watch a father walking out with his daughter, taking her on a walk to buy, an ice cream cone for her because he knew that this was actually the last time he was going to see her, and he was going to go home and kill himself afterwards because of the hopelessness
mm,
in his heart. And while they're walking, she hears the sound and says, "Daddy, let's go over there. Let's see what's going on." And comes up to us, and next thing you know, he's getting saved, and he's getting told that his life has value and that he doesn't need to. And someone's giving him a word of knowledge and saying, "Hey, you were gonna go kill yourself today, but today is not the last day for you to be here." And
mm,
like,
mm,
come to some of these places, and then we can have coffee and talk about it. I don't I don't even want to have a coffee with you until you can come and actually see these things. And that might sound a little
yeah.
harsh, but that's how
No, no.
passionate, that's how passionate I feel about what God's been doing and the truth of what he does. Yes, I will say, um, there are always, you can't ever generalize. That's like if I said, oh, all British people are this. Oh, all Americans are this, all Trump followers are this, all Biden followers are this. Like, that's not even logical. That's not even logical. Like, we can't generalize and say, oh, well, all rappers are going out and actually preaching and doing it for the right reasons. No, there are people who see this as another way to make money. There
Mm,
are people who are not good enough to sit with the big people, so they want to come to the Christian world because they think that we're soft, but they don't know that we actually are hard out here. So like, let's be real, let's be raw. Like, there are always going to be exceptions to the rule. However, I do believe that it's really worth our time. Why? Because
mm,
if we look at even hip hop right now, it is the rock and roll of today. It is the
yeah.
influential. It's not just about one day, love her. I actually got to do a show with her in Canada, in Toronto. 2019, we did a Canada Music Week, and I met her there, and it was really dope. And I love the fact that Reach signed a female. It was about time, yo.
Yeah.
I feel like there's so many dope females, and I'm also a very big advocate for um just a healthy support of other females. I think
Mhm, mhm.
even if we don't do it, other people always try to, like, I don't know if you've ever seen what is it called? It's like in the Dominican Republic and in a lot of Latin countries, they do these battles where they throw like two chickens into and they just try to see who wins, and a guy would throw one in, and it's like kind of like a country like sport, they battle the chickens against each other and they bet money on this. And it's kind of like freestyle battling too, where people go and they're trying to get the bag. And I feel like with
Mm,
women, it's like they throw you in a ring with someone else. Like, you gotta battle them or you gotta be against them. And it's like, dude, that was never even a thought. Like,
mm,
we don't even do the same thing. We don't even have the same passion. We're not even called to the same people. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like, and I feel like with females, I'm so much of an advocate for healthy community and healthy
Mm,
support. And when I say healthy, I mean real. Like, let's get together and let's have real conversations. Let's really build, not let's get in the studio and make a song so people think we're cool. Like, because there's that
mm,
too. There's that too. There's like, oh, I gotta make a song with her because she's popping, and if I want to be popping, I gotta get, nah. Like, I actually want to know you. Like, I want to meet your mom. You know what I'm saying? I want to
yeah.
go eat at your house. Like, I want to be family. And so, anyway, that's my tangent. But I think I think the biggest thing is just like letting people know that there's an audience for this and there is a need for this, and that maybe you are not called to go out and stand in the middle of a drug infested community in El Salvador or Honduras. Maybe you're called to just do it from your house by
Mm,
contributing to our flights, but you can be a part. If you feel like you're not the one to be in the front lines, you can be a part by supporting, but please don't be a part of those who destroy, because
mm.
we're not called to mirror that. We're called to mirror our king, and he's not here to destroy.
Yeah. Oh, I love how real you've just been. Like, as you're speaking, this is why I'm like, I wish you could see me because I'm like nodding real hard, like as if you can hear me. No, I love how real you're being because I think that's what SheHH is all about in terms of supporting women, in terms of being transparent with our just support of each other beyond just, hey, I like your song, or hey, let's do something together, or hey, let's scratch each other's backs. How about, hey, let's build each other spiritually as well. So I really
Mm.
appreciate you saying that. I think that's some realness that we need to hear. Yeah, and I just wanted to even like go back a bit and continue on with some of the stuff you've touched on. Going to Colombia where they speak Spanish. You said that you attract a lot of the Spanish speaking community in other Latin American countries.
Mhm.
I'm not gonna like try and front. I am obsessed with Spanish. I'm actually
Mm.
learning Spanish at the moment. Your music's actually part of what I use to learn Spanish. I'll let you know that.
Yay.
Yeah, and I've done a lot of like trying to do word for word translations, and it's been hilarious. But it's part of my little education. I'm doing self-taught Spanish. This is all just to kind of lead up to my question about the fact that you are bilingual and the fact that you've actually extended your reach by being able to reach English-speaking people, but also Spanish-speaking people. It's interesting that you have chosen to make a lot of music that's very much Spanish because the more commercially viable option is to make English music, especially because you are fluent and you speak English. But what was the choice and why was the reason that you thought, I'm actually going to make a lot more music that has both in it, but it has Spanish, so Spanish speaking people can understand?
So I grew up speaking Spanglish, which is like when your mom is yelling at you in Spanish and you're responding in English, and she's like, ¿Dónde tú estabas? ¿Por qué tú no llegaste? And you're like, Ma, I just really was with my friend. I promise. I wasn't doing anything bad. Like, and she's like, No me venga con it. Like, she's like mad at you and in Spanish, mad in Spanish. It's worse than being mad in English. I promise.
Yeah.
But, first I'll say, like, when I got into like I started making the music and for God, I started just writing down my prayers because I felt
Mm,
dumb talking to myself in a room. You gotta pray, close the door. I read this book by Benny Hinn called Good Morning Holy Spirit, and I loved it.
yeah.
It really sparked a lot of desire for me to seek God and seek his power and his presence. However, I just couldn't connect to like go to your room, close the door, and talk to yourself. I just felt kind of dumb. And so I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna write. And I'm being honest. I don't feel that way anymore. I talk to myself all the time. I talk to God while I'm talking to other people. It's like really weird. Thank God I have a mask on. I'll be like talking to God while I'm in front of someone. Um, but I was like, you know what? I'm actually just gonna write my prayers. And I started writing my prayers, and then it started turning into rhyme, and then I rapped them. And then so because I grew up in a Spanish environment with church, I kind of connected to God even with reading the Bible. It was more familiar to do it in Spanish. And
Mm,
so that's how it kind of began. I just was really much more comfortable in Spanish, and I started writing stuff to God, and I knew a lot. I realized I knew a lot of words, like good, like words that made me sound smart in Spanish because I read the Bible. My dad used to force me to
wow.
read the Bible all the time. So I realized I just knew a lot of words, and I was like, dude, I know like a lot of Spanish that most people don't know. And it made me sound very educated, I guess, and at the beginning, with my Spanish raps, and it, it kind of caught people's attention. But the
Mm,
thing was that every now and then I'd want to say something, and I felt like the best way to say it was in English because I did grow up speaking English mostly. So I just said, you know what? I'm not gonna try to translate it. I'm just gonna put it in there in English. And it gave my music a special touch because you never
Yeah.
knew when you were gonna get a random bar in English. Um, it was like a jack in the box, like a surprise. Like you just didn't know. Okay, now the hook. Oh wait, well she's talking English now. Okay, and then oh, okay, back to Spanish. And I'll tell you a story. So the first time I went to South America for a tour, I brought CDs that I had printed in the United States, and so we printed them for, I think it was like $2.50 because we were gonna sell them for $10, right? And so I was like, great, I'm gonna take these and I'm gonna try to get some of these off when I'm on this tour. And then I get to, I think I was in Guatemala. I don't remember. It was probably, yeah, Guatemala. And so I realized that like whatever I paid out here to make the CDs was even that the $2 was a lot to ask for there.
Yeah.
Um which meant I wasn't even gonna break even. And so I just started giving them away because I was like, I'm just gonna give them away. And God really taught me a lot about my audience, and
Mm,
about finding like a way to reach my audience because I had the like you said, the most commercial viable option would be to make English music. I can actually, I got like 30 tracks in a vault right now that are completely in English. And they've been sitting in a vault and I just haven't released them because I've been like waiting on the right timing.
mm.
Also, I want to get into some live stuff, so I'm waiting. Maybe I'll reproduce those and do them in a live version. I just want
Yeah.
to innovate. I in Boston we have Berkeley College of Music, so I have a lot of
Yeah.
friends. I used to live with a lot of students, and I have a lot of good friends, roommates, brothers, sisters who graduated and are like actively in the music industry, and so there's always that option of like, yo, let's get an ensemble. I want to get like a whole string section
Oh
and a
my
whole
gosh.
trumpet
Yeah.
section and just do something crazy. So yeah, I think I've just been kind of letting myself be led by
Mm.
God. I'm not here to compete with anybody. Like it, a lot of people say, I've had people say to me, yo, if you did English, like you would eat all these people. And I'm
Yeah.
like, dude, like I did a song Way Too Many, which you probably heard, with Nico M, who's also one of the only people who does the same thing I do. And I feel
Oh,
he's been doing more Spanish lately, but he's like me. He's like mixes both languages. And
wow.
um and the song has a verse in English that like I kind of went off on, and people have heard it and they're like, yo, like you need to do more of this. And I'm like, we'll see. We'll see when the time comes. But yeah, I find a lot of people listen to my music who don't even understand what I'm saying. And
Yep. Been there
I'm,
for sure.
I'm honored. I'm very honored by that. That's something only God can do. I honestly thought
Yeah.
I wasn't ever going to reach people. My own friends, they'd be like, Shorty, we don't understand what you're saying. My friends are not, they don't speak Spanish at all, most of my best friends. And I'd be like trying to explain to them, like as the song is playing, I'm like, yeah, I was just trying to say this. And they're like, yo, just shut up, just play the song. We just like it, we just feel it, the vibe. There's something about it. And so, yeah, that's something only God can do, really.
That's honestly me. When I tell you, oh my gosh, especially with like the Masterpiece album, like I'll be like listening, like, guys, have you heard this new Ada song? They're like, oh yeah, what's it called? I'm like, can't pronounce it, but it's lit, it's lit. Like, what's she saying?
Can't
Don't know, but
pronounce
it's lit.
it.
I'll be like on Google Translate, trying to translate like words, and like I've definitely done like translating choruses, which is
Mhm.
like my favorite thing to do. Again, educational. But yeah, like I think that shows it's from God, because how can we be enjoying a completely different language? You barely understand what's going on, but we're still feeling the spirit behind it. Do you know what I mean? So that's God. I don't know what else to say. That's God, really. I just wanted to kind of touch on something you mentioned when you were saying like, when people say to you, "Oh, if you went on in English, you'd go off. Everyone would love you. You'd eat up everyone else." And you're thinking, "Okay, cool. I'm not really competing with other people, but that would be nice, whatever." I just want to ask, like, how you get yourself into that mindset where you're like, I'm not competing with other people. Like, there are so many other artists. There's only a finite amount of people listening to Christian music as it is. How do you build a fan base and make sure that you stand out and that you as the brand and you as the artist are listened to without trying to compete with other people that are doing, I was going to say the same thing as you, but no one's really doing what you're doing. But you know what I mean? Like, how do you
Yeah.
make sure that you're not stuck in that place of comparison?
I've heard this phrase a lot, so I'll say it because it sounds cool. Comparison is the thief of joy.
Mm.
Um, I love to tell you that I have a super secret like sauce formula to make sure I stay there. But honestly, it's just like a day by day thing. And I guess if I had to say one thing that keeps me grounded is continuing to stay at the feet of the Father. Um,
Mm,
and that is fancy Christianese for I spend time with him, whether it be reading the word or spending time in worship and prayer, and really just thanking him and honoring him for who he is and what he's
mm,
done and what he's going to do. And I think, yeah, like putting my crown, even that crown that I carry, which is like, oh, this super dope Christian rapper. She's female. She raps in English and Spanish. She got a dope story. She's good to listen to. There's all this stuff, and I know I got it. And I'm not gonna be false humble and tell you, counterfeit humility and tell you, no, I'm just a dirty rolled rag. I'm not even that great. No, I know what's up. I worked really hard for where I'm at.
as
I've
in,
worked,
yeah.
yeah, I've worked really hard for this, and I've been through a lot of difficult situations that have shaped me, and some good situations as well. But like at the end of the day, none of that means anything if I'm finding my value in that. My value is found not in my accomplishments but in his.
Mm,
And so I think putting that crown at his feet and saying, every crown that people crown me with, I'm gonna bring it back to this room and I'm gonna put it at your feet.
yeah.
That keeps me grounded, and it also keeps me on my toes, because this is the thing, right? When you compete with people, you can always find a way to do what they did better, right?
Mm,
Because you just have to, that's like Apple and Samsung. They just saw us, it's just, we're going to do it better. We're going to make it look, we're going to sell it in a sleeker way. We're going to make people just want this and desire this. And we're going to sell them for $1,000, like that's just the way that business works, and music is business as well, as much as it's ministry is business. So if I see what someone else is doing, oh, she dope, but like she don't got this, let me do this. She's dope, but she don't dance. Let me just throw a bunch of dancers. You just need, you sit with these analysts, you sit with these marketers, and you just need a team of dancers. You just need, what you need
yeah.
is this, what you need, and they tell you all the stuff you need, and like to get this thing to sell. But my goal is not selling. My goal is transformation and actually
Mm,
reaching that core of people. And so, it's just because I have a different goal, I have a different approach, and that's that. And no
I
shade to
love that.
anybody else, no shade to nobody. Like, yo, if you have the opportunity, if somebody's backing you, someone who's listening to this podcast right now, if somebody got money to back you and to pay for the most expensive marketers and the most expensive videographers and all that, yo, if God's blessing you with that, you better take that and you better run with that and you better do
Yeah.
whatever God's put on your lap. And you better not look back. You know what I'm saying? But for me, I think I needed, because of my story with LA and all that stuff, like I needed to come to a place where it was like not about those things.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that keeps me grounded.
No, that's so true. I mean, I like that you kind of put that little caveat in. Like, if it is that God's calling you that way, don't be panicked and worried and say no because you're like, oh no, like go for it. But at the same time, for you, because of everything you had been through and because of your story, you knew that this was the way that God was taking you. So yeah, that's legit. That's amazing. I think I talked about, or I mentioned Masterpiece, the album, which is one of your most recent albums. I know you have a few singles that have come out since then, but I believe that's the most recent album. I
It
wanted
is.
to kind of, yeah, okay, good. We try and do our research at SheHH, but the world changes so much and everything. But I just wanted to ask you about the message behind the album, especially because of when it came out in May 2020. We were literally like mid pandemic. The whole world was kind of like shutting down and panicking. So, did that at all influence, the album or the message that was meant to be for this album? And why did you still feel like, yeah, I wanted to release it around that time?
Yeah, so I love to talk on Masterpiece. I haven't talked on Masterpiece yet, much, because of when it came out, and so I didn't do any tours or many
Yeah.
media tours or anything, and also moved across the country for school in August of last or September of last year. So it was kind of like just a lot of stuff back to back. But yeah, so Masterpiece is based on Ephesians 2:10 in the New Living Translation. It says, "For we are God's masterpiece." He's created us new in Christ Jesus so we can do the good things that he planned for us long ago. And so that verse, I love Ephesians. That's like my favorite book of the Bible. I just love how real and how kind of what's the word, dynamic it is. And so I read it
Yeah.
often. But I was reading, I want to say it was March or April, and I was reading the book, the chapter 2, and I come across this verse that I had read so many times before, and it finally clicked. I go into this like encounter, and I just thought about like masterpieces, right, and how beautiful and how much people admire them and travel all the way to Paris to go see these one of one masterpieces in
Mm,
the museum and the art museums, and it's really cool. But what I realized was that most people don't see that masterpiece when it's being done, when it's being painted, and the dark colors
mm,
that are used for shadows, the very shadows that people admire, like, wow, I don't know how he shaded her face like that. Those were the dark colors that when he was painting just looked really ugly on the canvas. And God just starts to show me
yeah.
like there's a lot of stuff about you, because I was going through a lot end of 2019. I had I had a really big test where I kind of just had a falling out with God. Something happened in my family that really just had me thinking, and I just stopped like pursuing Him the way I'm used to. I need to be on fire all the time. Like I can't not be. And so whenever I'm not, I just slowly drift, and I'm like,
Yeah.
let me go get high, or let me go smoke weed, let me go. And I think of these things that almost like are a moment of satisfaction or a moment of easing pain, um
Mm,
and
mhm.
coping with pain. And so I was in this space where I started to think about a lot of what I used to do and almost desire it, like almost like wish I was back there. And that really put me in a dark place, because now I have a bunch of people looking to me. Now I have an audience, and I'm like, dude, I can't. It's like the tension between, okay, I'm a leader, but like I'm also human. And then it's like, but my humanity is something that could hurt other people, and I could confuse people, and like I never want to be that. And so that tension, and then knowing I grew up with people who call themselves Christians, who call themselves pastors and leaders, and then you realize they were cheating on their wives or doing all these things behind the scenes, and
Yeah.
kind of faced with that. And I had like, I just literally shut down because I didn't feel like I had any information as to like how to get out of there. And I just shut down, and I said, I'm just gonna take some time away from the music, and I'm gonna take, I had singles and stuff like I just had already scheduled that would still come out, but I was less active on socials. I was less active. I would turn down any events I had, and I was just like kind of going on about the corporate life. I got a job, which I didn't have like a corporate job for a while. And I was like, I'm just gonna get a job, and I'm just gonna be, can I just be normal? I just want to be like a normal person. And then, right at the start of the pandemic, I'm trying to push myself into, because I start to feel like the world's gonna change. You need to get with the program. You're here for this time. And I'm reading this verse, and God just hits me and tells me, you see those dark parts, that's all part of the masterpiece too.
Mm,
And
mhm.
so I thought I was like done. I'm like, okay, this is the end. I'm good. I've put out an album, I put out an EP, I put out singles, I made some records, hit some, okay, great. But now God's like, nope, I'm using that too. And so I just said, all right, you said it. You're the one, at the end of the day, I serve you. I told you I was going to serve you all the days of my life. And he said, put out this project with that and share the stories, the dark parts. And so you don't understand a lot of it. Maybe you do. I don't know. But like 413 is one of the songs where I share specifically like what it feels like when you're just like falling into sexual sin, and you're like in the shower, and
Mm,
you feel dirty, and like you can't wash yourself enough to feel clean, and like so the hook, it's 4:13 in the morning, and I'm sitting in my bed. I want to talk to you, but I don't know what to say. The restlessness of not being able to fall asleep because you were just out doing what you shouldn't be doing, and then you got home and you're like, I
mhm.
can't even pray before bed. I'm actually not going to go to sleep so I don't have to pray. I'm just going to stay up. And so that song actually resonated with a lot of people. I worked with a producer, Brendan Coe. He's from Michigan. He's worked with NF. and I'm sure you've heard of NF.
Right. Mhm.
And he works with quite a few people, and then I did a lot of it actually was self-produced too. So like the
Oh,
first song,
amazing.
yeah, De Rodillas, was produced by me, and obviously I don't play much instruments, so I'm a real producer. Like I'm not just a beat maker. I actually hear the sounds and hire people to play them, and then I put them together. It's kind of dope. At first, I didn't consider myself a producer because I was like, I don't really play. But over the years, as I've met more industry people, they're like, yeah, you're a producer. You definitely are. Um, and then what else? So yeah, there's a song in there too called Jueces, which is judges. They all judging now, and it's a journey. I literally take people on a journey of what it means to be called, but to be flawed.
Mhm.
And yeah, I got some pretty good acceptance with that project. I self-released it and I recorded it in a month,
Oh,
um,
wow.
and put it out in a month. Like I started recording it after the pandemic began and I released it May 29th. So it was kind of a quick release. But yeah, I really wish it was in English sometimes because I really want my friends to understand what I'm saying, but whatever. I can't do anything about that now.
I know for me that after talking to you, I'm definitely going to go back and like properly. I mean, I say properly, it's still going to be Google Translate, but I'm going to put it on Google Translate and just go through the lyrics even more because even though I didn't fully understand the stories behind what was being said, it's weird that I'm hearing you now explain like the stories behind different songs, like even with 413 being one of my faves. And like, I'm thinking back, like, I had similar emotions listening to the song, even though I didn't fully understand that that's what the song was about. So
Wow.
even just to hear you just explain, like, oh, yeah, this is the reasoning behind writing this and producing this is actually amazing. And just, I think yeah, what I'm getting from this interview or what I'm getting from right now is you're definitely where you're supposed to be because it doesn't make sense the impact that Spanish music would be having on non-Spanish speaking people, but it is. Do you know what I mean? And that has
Mhm.
God written all over it. Like that's literally in his bio, making things that don't make sense because he can do that. So yeah, I think as much as I would like selfishly want you to like put out Masterpiece in English just so that we could all like join that journey as well. I also do think that it serves a real purpose the way it is. And even if you do end up choosing to release more like that vault of all English songs, I think that this like hybrid Spanglish
Mhm.
genre that you've kind of made for yourself is doing what it's supposed to do. And I just pray that like you continue to,
Yeah. Thank
flourish
you
in
so much. You're so sweet. I appreciate you, sis. Thank you for the time and thank you for I'm not checking out, but I'm just saying I really wanted to say that before I got off that I really appreciate you and I really bless you and just pray that God continues to give you creative ideas to keep expanding his kingdom on earth and establishing his kingdom in the mountain of communication. I just pray like a special just blessing over you that you would just I don't know, just wake up one day and just know that there's something that you're gonna do and no one else has done it and it's like do it. You know what I mean? There's such a dope thing about manifesting things that were never done and just saying this thing was a thought and now it's here. I
yeah,
think
yeah.
it almost like even affirms us as creatives and it affirms us as children of the creator, and and that affirmation turns into confidence that then you can
Mhm.
continue. You want to keep going because you're confident. You like, well, I already did that. Like when I talk to you, I'm like, oh my God, like I'm interviewing with someone from the UK right now on a project that's not even in English. Like, whoa, God, like I can't stop now. You know what I mean? We just
Yeah,
getting
yeah.
started. And so I want to say real quick because I just feel for you for the fact that you're gonna go on Google and translate these songs. So Tentada is an interlude. It's the third song on Masterpiece, and it's actually a real voice note that I got mid my when I told you I was going through that whole season of like weirdness. And I got a
Mhm.
voice note from this girl in Colombia that I had gone when I went like initially my first trip there. I had gone to the jail, to the maximum security jail and did a show inside or share some music inside with the inmates. And me and her have kept in touch. Her and her husband do a lot of jail ministry, and she reached out to me like, "How you doing?" And I was like, "I'm feeling really low. I don't even know if I should continue. I don't." And she's like, "Oh, the music." And I was like, "No, not even the music. Just like in life in general. Like I just feel low." And she said to me, she said, "Sometimes, um, we go through these moments where we feel like we're not good enough, or like we're struggling, but she's like, you're a diamond, and your story is you're a precious, gem that not everyone sees, but like when that pressure is making you, glow and shine." And it just hit me, like literally her words, to the point that I was like, yo, I'm gonna put this project out, and I'm gonna put this voice note in the project. So that's one. And then, I added, that was my producer mind. I added some piano to it, and it was like at the end, I'm like, I've been high, I've been low, I've been high, I've been low, but I'm gonna stay on this road. I'm gonna stay on this road. And then hide is also when I literally say, like, I've been trying to hide from the calling, I've been trying to hide from you. But then I think the one that I really wanted to touch with you is COC, because there's a verse that says that
Yes,
in Jesus.
that's one of my faves.
Yeah, so because it does have an English verse. So COC is my take on when it says that in Christ Jesus, all of God's promises are yes and amen. So
Mm,
it literally means yes or yes. And I'm pretty much just making a prophetic statement that, like, regardless of the ups and downs, like, God's plan is going to come to pass in my life, yes or yes. And that's the message I want to leave people with. Anyone who's listening, just want to leave you with that. I know that we're living in like the craziest times ever. But then again,
mm,
people who lived through the Spanish flu thought it was the craziest times for them. And so we can't compare, because every generation has challenges, and we just got to know this: if we were chosen to live in this time, we have what it takes to overcome the obstacles
yeah,
of this time. And not only that, we have what it takes to not only survive, but to thrive and to bring forth and to birth a movement, to birth whatever, whatever it is that we're birthing, whether it be we're creating something new or we are innovating in something old. We have what it takes to really change the world, and to really draw all men, lift Christ up. If he's lifted up, all men get drawn to him.
yeah.
And
Hmm.
so that is my, I guess, takeaway for everyone, and also just for anyone who wants to listen to Masterpiece. You're a masterpiece. The dark colors don't take away from the beauty of who you are and what God's doing in your life.
Amen. Wow. Girl,
You didn't know you was gonna get a sermon. You didn't know that. You
I did not know. I'm here like, oh, got questions to put, and then we're just having a convo, and I'm like, wow, like I'm leaving affirmed. I'm just, yeah, like it's God all over. God, all I can say is God all over. I was gonna ask you about some specific stuff you've done. I was gonna ask you about the plans for your career, but this just feels like the perfect place to kind of leave people with things that they can go back and pray about and think about and hopefully go dig into his word for. So I'm tempted to say that this might mean we're going to need a second episode with you, Ada. I'm just saying. I'm just saying.
and I can commit to that. Let's do it.
Yes. We've got
Yeah.
you on record now. But honestly, because there's so much that I would love to pick your brains on and hear more about. But I just think that those final words will actually transform someone who is listening to this and does not understand just how life changing that scripture in Ephesians is when it says that we are God's masterpiece. It's a confidence thing that goes beyond, yeah, I'm just really good. It's like, no, 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 this is identity now. So
Mhm,
I'm I'm going to let us end here for that very reason.
mhm.
But guys, if you're listening, just keep locked in to Ada's socials, keep locked into SheHH, because there definitely will be a part two, or we're just gonna have to get her on a live or something just to make sure that we get more of that convo with her, because I think you have so much to give, and I've said that like a million times during this interview, but you have so much to give, and I'm just here to hear it. I just am.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Just you saying that. And I just want to say one thing. We all have so much to give. It's just that we don't give because we're so scared of giving, 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 and then never getting anything back because we've been
Yeah.
hurt. And even in relationships, we've given, and then someone like turns around and stabs you in the back. And so I think there's so much freedom just coming upon us now, even with the pandemic. It's kind of rearranged our priorities.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really given us this eyes to see that legacy. People were fine one day and then got sick with a cold, and then 2 days later they were gone. And it was like, what legacy are you leaving? And so for
Mm-hmm.
me, it's so much about legacy and about making sure that I am giving all of me, that I'm not, I don't want to go, I don't want to leave the earth with anything. I want to go, empty, and leave it all here. The great Miles Monroe, Dr. Miles Monroe, he's, rest in peace, but he's someone who really impacted my life as a preacher. And that was, I guess, the beginning of me just wanting to learn more so I can give more than music. So, Paula, I commit to the interview. You got me
Yeah,
on. I commit to the second interview. You got me on record. Let's
yeah,
plan it out. Let's chat. Probably be another day like this. Just a
yeah.
morning.
Amazing. Thank you so much again for being on the SheHH podcast. Where can we find you online so that people can keep in touch with everything Ada?
Yeah, sure. So my socials are all at Ada Betsabe, and that's ADABETSABE, all across the board. And expect new music from me this year. I got some cool stuff cooking.
Yay, I'm excited. Everything you put out is a banger, even if I don't know what's going on. So I'm excited.
Thank you so
And
much.
yeah, we'll definitely hear from you again soon.
Hi guys, I hope you enjoyed that episode. If you did, make sure to leave a like rating wherever you're listening to this and to follow us on Instagram at SheHH Podcast.